Their first one was posted by AEW, and all it was them sharing a Variety article chronicling or detailing WWE's new competition, AEW, and discussing AEW and their momentum and some of the people they signed and how WWE hasn't had competition in the last 20 years, that sort of thing. And said, oh, finally they've got competition. It was an article that made AEW look good. So AEW's social media Twitter page shared the article. The responses have to be read to be believed. So of course you scroll down. The most common one was my favorite. Oh, it's exhausting reading this shit. It's the same thing when fans get pissed when somebody posts a pro AEW thing. You're like, oh, you're paid by AEW. It's like all they've got. It's all they got. So all they have here is they say, boy, shouldn't you be spending time focusing on your own product rather than wasting your time and energy posting shit like this? Wasting your time and energy? Do you have a phone? Do you have social media? How much time and energy does it take to click share? Watch. Share. Is that a lot of time and energy? Doesn't take a lot of time and energy for me. Took less than 1 second, millisecond. By the way, shout out to Brian Zane, who's on my phone right now, who just liked something I tweeted. That's all you have to do. Share. It's not wasting time and energy. It's not focusing on your own product. I don't know if you fucking noticed, but AEW pre-announces their entire cards for Rampage and Dynamite before we ever get there. They got their shit together. They are focusing on their own product. You know who's not? Them other guys. Vince and Bruce and that barrel of monkeys they have over there who don't. Now they're starting to advertise a little bit. We've got some matches set for Monday. Some good ones set for Monday. So they're trying to do a little bit better with that, and I'll give them credit for it. But most of the time, most weeks, especially this past summer when they didn't have Monday Night Football breathing down their necks, you didn't know what the fuck was happening. The show was going to go live in 2 hours, and they haven't announced a single match on social media. And everything they did is just impromptu and rematches and rewash and rehash redundant nonsense every fucking week. AEW sets you up. They sign off Rampage or sign off Dynamite by rolling through what you're going to see next week. They are looking ahead. They are planning shit out weeks in advance. Taking 1 second to click share is not taking the attention away from their product. And I highly doubt that Tony Khan is in charge of AEW's Twitter page. They probably got a dude doing that who has nothing to do with the creative direction, has nothing to do with the push or de-push or promotion of anybody. He just shared an article. Fans went nuts. The very same fans that claim that the AEW fanboys and the AEW crazies, which believe me do exist, I've seen them, they claim that those are the unstable ones. But tweets like this kind of disprove that narrative. You're no more stable than they are, basically, is what I'm saying. And that's why I kind of feel like I know what some of these fans are thinking and their thought process, because I've talked about in the past how this channel was really kind of born out of anger and frustration to TNA fans, convinced that Vince is going to be out of business by 2012 and he is fucked 6 ways to Sunday, and just going on and just gargling the balls of TNA to where I let it bother me, and I shouldn't have, but it birthed this YouTube channel. So I don't regret it. However, I kind of understand what it's like to have other fans shape your opinions about a wrestling company. And that's simply what's happening here. And then Tony Khan dumps a little gasoline on that fire after Rampage. He tweets out this. Now remember, next week, SmackDown is moving to FS1, and they're billing it as a supersized SmackDown. It's going to be 2.5 hours, not just 2 hours. But for a half an hour they're going to be going head-to-head with Rampage. So Tony Khan tweeted out this: I saw you're doing a half an hour head-to-head with us. I can't wait to finally beat your main show head-to-head. It's been a long time coming. See you next Friday. Which is funny. He basically wants to take advantage of SmackDown going to FS1, thinking the numbers won't be very good over there, and that he might be able to, at least in that half hour anyway, get a better rating than them, draw a better number, and maybe beat them in the demo. They got a legitimate chance to do that, because the FS1 shows usually aren't much, but I think WWE is going to try to stack this one with a Brock appearance and a couple of other big matches. So it probably will turn out to be a good show, and I'm curious to see how that goes. But of course, when Tony tweets that, more of the same. You should focus on your own product. What is with you guys? It doesn't take any more than 10 fucking seconds to tweet out, aha, WWE, we're head to head, we're going to beat you. It's just competition. I don't understand why this angers so many people, and they get so unbelievably butthurt about it. And for some reason, anything like this or any tweet or post that's even remotely pro AEW, you know, some people can be so incredibly fucking argumentative about everything. And for these responses in the Tony Khan tweet I put on Twitter last night, I'm like, this tweet, like I said, will disprove this narrative that AEW fans are the crazy ones, because you can see people losing their minds. You can see the true misguided, directionless hate that lives in their heart for Tony Khan. They do not like him. This is just a goofy ass. He kind of reminds me of like an Eli Manning type of guy that just happens to be running a wrestling company. Just some sort of like aw shucks dork. Maybe some people say, oh, you shouldn't tweet stuff like that, whatever. But to act like this is taking away from their product and their focus is diverted. Give me a fucking break. I can understand if an 18-year-old says this because they don't know jack shit about what real competition is. But if you're an older wrestling fan and you actually have memories of WCW, of ECW, of WWE, of TNA, of the AWA, if you have memories of any of these promotions, for you to pretend that this is not okay basically just proves exactly what I'm saying. You don't like AEW and you just can't say it for some reason. It's okay to say, I don't care. I'm not going to be offended. You can fucking write all over goddamn Twitter, I hate AEW. Go ahead, shout it from the fucking rooftops. You ain't offending me. So I don't know why people are so like against admitting this to themselves. You know, ECW never shut the fuck up about all those companies. They were constantly taking shots at them. WWE with the billionaire Ted skits, WCW giving away the results of Raw, DX invading Nitro. There are so many instances and examples throughout history. Cookiegate of TNA taking the cookies to WWE, trying to sell to me that every single other wrestling company in history had a reason to take shots, but AEW shouldn't. They are the one and only and sole lone exception to the rule that has never been different ever in wrestling's history. Only AEW shouldn't be doing this because they're not competition. They don't have the same fans. The fuck they don't. They're a wrestling company. Of course they do. The fan base, you know, there's definitely a tribalism going on. I'll agree with that. But even the biggest AEW haters tuned in and watched CM Punk's return. They watched Daniel Bryan and Kenny Omega. If they didn't, I don't even know how they can call themselves wrestling fans. And I can speak on this because I lived through the Monday Night Wars. I lived through WCW and WWE. I carried the WWE flag, admittedly. However, I wasn't stupid enough to pretend, like so many others do with AEW, that WCW was inferior and they're a goddamn joke. I can't look at the NWO and the sold out arenas and the ratings and the numbers and the pay-per-view buys that company is doing and bullshit myself into thinking they suck. That takes an incredible amount of ignorance. And I wasn't that dumb. Even back in the day, even as anti-WCW as I was, the NWO was awesome. I took notice of Goldberg. I'm like, that guy's fucking over. You know, they had wrestlers there, DDP, even some of the washed up guys like Savage and stuff were doing some good work. I wasn't foolish enough to bullshit myself into thinking that WCW wasn't worth watching. I wanted WWE to win the war. I was more on their side than WCW's side. But it's not like I didn't watch WCW. It's not like I said, oh, their product is a joke. No, their product was good at times. They had their moments. They did some great things. You know, so like I understand what it's like to pick a side. I get it. But I would have never gotten to the point where I would completely spend most of my time arguing against any pro AEW or pro WCW, I should say, point, because that seems like a huge waste of fucking time. So you can't pretend, even though both companies, even though WWE will claim, oh, AEW is not competition because we're sports entertainment. Bullshit, motherfuckers. If they're not competition, then why the hell are you having a supersized SmackDown next week? Why is it an extra half hour? Why? To fuck with AEW. Of course it's competition. It's two wrestling companies who have wrestling fans. Now, I know one wrestling company is vastly different than the other. I love Excalibur's tagline that AEW is the home of professional wrestling. I think that works. They should go with that. That's a hell of a lot better than where the big boys play, especially when you have WWE out there claiming that they make movies and they're sports entertainment, and these guys are not our direct competition, yet they are making moves to stunt the growth of this company that supposedly is not competition. AEW might say the same thing. Oh, we don't care about WWE. Yeah, you do, because you're tweeting stuff out. You're watching the ratings. When you beat them in the demo or something, you go crazy about it. I don't think either one of these companies should pretend that the other doesn't matter. They matter very much. And it matters now. A company matters more now to WWE than any time in the last 20 years. It hasn't been since WCW that a company like this has been this much of competition for WWE. Even when TNA was at its highest point, it just they didn't have that like big TV deal, and it was just weird, and it was in the Impact Zone, and even though they did great shit, they were poorly managed, poorly owned. It was such a discombobulated mess over there. They never felt stable with a focus and a direction. AEW does feel like that. So I think that when you have a company that's making this type of noise and making this type of buzz and carrying this type of momentum, why wouldn't you boast or brag about that? Now, you can debate whether or not, Tony Khan is an idiot for doing this stuff or whatever, but, to act like they're obsessed with the WWE to the point where it's affecting their product, boy, you got the wrestling knowledge of a goddamn gerbil if you think that, because we've seen that happen before. It's already happened in history. When you want to see a company become overly obsessed with another company, I can think of more than one example of companies that were a hell of a lot worse than AEW. They're mindful, I guess, of what WWE is doing at all times. They're keeping their eye on them, that sort of thing. Typical shit that you would do in competition, but in terms of being obsessive, I don't see that at all. Obsessive is what ECW was. Obsessive is when what made ECW famous was basically just shitting on the other company. I've brought up this before too. Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't become Stone Cold Steve Austin at the 1996 King of the Ring when he said Austin 316 is going to whip your ass. He became Stone Cold Steve Austin in Paul Heyman's basement when he was ripping on WCW and Eric Bischoff and Dusty Rhodes and Mongo McMichael and everybody there that fucked with his career. Every promo in the ring, WCW or WWE wrestlers would be mentioned. Devon Dudley would do the People's Elbow. You had the BWO. Everything they did was a reaction to what WWE or WCW was doing. They were trying to take shots. They were trying to get noticed. They were trying to compete while WWE and WCW slugged it out for the big time. Every wrestling company has done this. AWA did it. NWA did it. Every company boasts that they're the best. Every company puts down the other. Every company takes shots. This is nothing new. If anything, I'm happy that it's back. It's been a long time since we've had companies being able to fuck with each other. And to let this bother you is incredible to me. And it makes me question if these fans were ever fucking hugged as a kid or something. Like, why are you no fun? Why are you so fucking unimaginably one goddamn dimensional boring? Have some fun. It's been the first time since WCW was around that we got another company out there that says we are here, boys, let's play. And since then, they've brought on some incredible free agents. CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole weren't handed to AEW by Vince McMahon. They chose to go there, and they won't be the last. And the fact that we have all of this back again, and even though, yes, it's not exactly what the Monday Night Wars were back in the day, it sure as shit is the closest thing we've ever had to that. So to reject this, to hate that there's another company out there, to root for their downfall and hope that they don't succeed for the sole purpose of being able to brag to the fans that annoy you. The same people that were talking about AEW wasting their energy with these tweets, I think you're wasting your life acting like that, if you ask me. So AEW and Tony Khan tweeting out those things was not a big deal, but of course the panties ruffled and went directly up the asses of so many butthurt little bitches. Grow up.